when you're dealing with something complex, you really need your conceptual foundation to be really solid. And I don't think human rights really is a sustainability issue, because you can make a lot of money indefinitely by treating people terribly, and many countries do. And I just worry that the private sector's conception of ESG is a purely risk return based concept. This all comes down to financial return. It's just the time horizon over which you look at it has now migrated into regulation. There's no moral component, the human rights aspect, and you can kind of see that it might work, the risk return thing on climate, just about. Although you could argue why isn't the market accounting for that? But I don't see at all how. And also, I think it's quite immoral to talk about social things in terms of financial risk return. I saw there's a UK government consultation to pension fund trustees that just went out a couple of days ago, and they couch it in precisely those terms, talking about investment opportunities around social action. It's like, well, it shouldn't be an investment opportunity. I mean, it can be as well, but if it is, the market will deal with that. It's ethical, and that's for me the barrier between private and public. But it seems to me that the public sector and the policymakers have just adopted the language of the private sector.
Well, I think I have a different view. I think that, first of all, it's clearly the case that where there are significant harms being done, whether they be environmental harms, and climate change is obviously only one aspect of environmental harm, but whether they be environmental harms or whether they be harms to people, whether they be harms to human rights, whether they be harms to other social issues, then it's clearly right, at least to me, that governments, policymakers step in and sort of simply ban those activities. I mean, we just do not allow people to pollute rivers. We just do not allow people to allow their workers to operate in unsafe environments. I mean, that's just something that we have to outlaw. And I certainly don't think that regulators, governments should be allowed to dodge their responsibility for doing that, for simply making things illegal and then enforcing the law properly. And I think that that there may be a risk, and this is an interesting debate within the corporate governance world, which we might come on to corporate governance more specifically. But I very much believe that if people think corporate governance reform lets the government off the hook in any way for taking action in relation to activities that they think are just harmful, then I think that corporate governance reform could actually be counterproductive, because we just need to tell companies, businesses, that they can't do certain things, and if they do, they'll feel the full force of the law on them. However,
but I agree with you, Simon. I think that's the point I'm making.
And I'm agreeing with you to that. I'm agreeing with you to that extent.
Sorry. Okay.
So I'm trying to get at my point of agreement out first. But I think that you can sort of believe that and still go on to argue, as I would, that nevertheless we also have to make sure that businesses are given the right incentives to tackle those challenges in a positive way. And so, as well as the government saying there are certain things we just can't allow businesses to do, there is also a role for a government in asking companies to step up to the challenges of people and planet and to actually make a positive difference. To say that creates investment opportunity, I think, is just manifestly true. And to do anything as a government that you can to increase the opportunity available to businesses that rise to the challenge, I think is helpful. And so if there are opportunities to generate technologies that solve the problems of climate change or solve problems of biodiversity, or indeed investment activities that reduce inequality in communities, for example, then I think it makes perfect sense for the government to both accentuate those opportunities, perhaps by providing, tax incentives or other things, or perhaps to make them more attractive to investors who want to invest in those activities. For example, by requiring businesses to disclose more clearly, what they're doing, and to hold them to the disclosures that they're making more strictly, so that you can't, raise capital from investors who want to do socially advantageous things by saying you're going to do socially advantageous things and then not delivering. So holding companies and asset managers to promises they make to investors makes perfect sense to me, and that would, I think, then accentuate the opportunity for companies who want to actually achieve really positive benefits to society. It gives them the opportunity to do that and to make money at the same time.
That's a pretty good segue into your book, Corporate Governance and Responsible Investment in Private Equity.